everyone, this is Julia with Julia at Home, and today I'm sharing with you our rock and mineral study. So this study was geared towards my kindergartner and preschooler that I am currently homeschooling, but I think a lot of these activities could work for older kids as well, and you could do with a variety of ages. So first, I'm actually going to start by showing you a quick tour of the bookshelf that I had the unit study on, that I filmed towards the end of our unit. So I'm going to show you that, and then I'll be back here and I'll go in more detail through the books and resources we used. I wanted to take this opportunity to show you our shelves for our rock unit study. So it's kind of in an odd spot in the corner between our entryway and our living room. That's where I stuck this little bookcase here that will house our science and nature units. So I'm going to actually start up above. This is a Cavallini poster, and I put it on a little poster hanger there of minerals, which is just, it's pretty, I love it. Doing rocks and minerals is an excuse to get that. And then the top shelf here, we have a display of all of our rocks and minerals with a couple books and a guide here. So I started off already having some of these from what things we found and random places, random ways we got them. And then several of these have been added, like our geodes. We have some of our favorite geodes out here from when we did that activity, and the rest are in here. We might put them in our garden, actually. We were thinking that would be fun. And we have some marble from our trip to the Marble Museum. But the rest we've either had or found. I think the salt is actually also, we got some salt at the Marble Museum there. Oops, sorry, there you go, salt. And I just have some, these are some like little magnifying, they're like jeweler's lopes or lenses. And so they're good. I've been intending to put them on strings to bring on nature walks. I've seen other people do that. But for right now, they're just, there's two of them out here so they can look more closely at the rocks and minerals, which they do sometimes. Moving down a shelf, these are the books that we've been using. This is Nature Anatomy here. And I had the minerals out for about half the time, and the other half the time I had out, let's see, this rock page here, the rock cycle. We started with this and then moved to the minerals, actually. So I've had that out just kind of as a nice display and for them to look at. And we've also pulled it out and used it during our studies. And then this is a mix of kind of, I don't want to say fiction. Some of them are kind of fiction, but not, some of them, yeah. They're stories and non-stories, I guess, all about rocks. So, and I'm trying to think, I think they're all here now. And we read most of these, not all the same week. I would read a couple each week. I kind of used this as a spine, and we would do a chapter a week, along with some other books, but I'll show you those in more detail separately. And then this shelf here has our activities. So these are cards that I will show in more detail. They're 3-part cards. We use them for matching games. We've got rock activities, which is going to be the last thing we have left to do for our unit. We've got this rock on game. We've got the geode kit, and this is a volcano making kit, which I've had for a while, and I thought about doing this study, and we haven't gotten to it, so I'll just save it and we'll do it something else. The bottom is just random peg dolls and pine cones, nothing to do with rocks. Okay, I'm going to jump right in with the books. So I kind of split them up into two categories, although it's not exact. So these are what I'm calling resource books. Now, this isn't even a book here. This is our little Pocket Naturalist Guide to Geology. And we can take this with us when we do hikes and then see if we can identify some of the rocks that we see, and minerals. So that's cool. And it gives you information on like the different areas of the country and what's there. So this is just like a handy little tool. I didn't really, we didn't go through and read it or anything, but I had it out, and we will continue to bring it on our hikes. Nature Anatomy. I'll probably use this in every single nature and science unit that I do. It is beautiful. We used these, there's a page on the rock cycle and a page on minerals. And so I had it displayed on the bookcase, the unit bookcase, as you might have seen. And we also used it to copy out of for our nature journals, which I will show you at the end of the video. Okay, Everything Rocks and Minerals by National Geographic Kids. I ended up kind of using this, I want to, not really as a spine, but sort of, I basically did a chapter a week, because it starts with kind of a general idea. It goes through the different types of rocks here and the rock cycle. And then, you know, it goes into other information, into minerals. And so I kind of used this as, we worked through this in the chapters in order and used it as a stepping off point for what other books and activities I included in that week. So this was an extra book. I don't think we read the whole thing. It goes more into geology itself and how rocks are formed. And I wanted to focus more just on identifying the rocks and such. My kids actually did enjoy the geology part of it, so we did more than I intended to, just because they're so young and it seems like an abstract concept. But so we read a little bit of this, but we didn't read through the whole thing. It's I mean, there's a lot of great information here, but it's pretty dense. It's may not be like a living book, 'cause it's not a story. But there is a lot of good information in here. And we have, I think I have another one of these books that I will show you in a minute. This is A Rock is Lively. This is beautiful. This whole series is absolutely gorgeous. So, it's Diana Hunts Aston, Sylvia Long. They have other ones. I think a Nest is Noisy. Seed is Sleepy. We have the Butterfly. One, A Butterfly is Patient. So first of all, the illustrations are just gorgeous. And for younger kids, you can just read these big, you know, the big script words there, and it's kind of like a story. But then for older kids, you can read the descriptions. My daughter has always wanted me to read the descriptions, even when she was young. So that is what I do. I read the whole thing. And it's got a lot of information in here, but it's told in such a simple and beautiful way. And it's got beautiful pictures. We also used this as inspiration for some of our nature journal drawings. My daughter in particular came back to this to copy out several of them. So that's A Rock is Lively. Okay, so here's the other one that goes with the geology book. These are both a true book by Scholastic, sorry. And this one's on minerals. And we also read some of this one, but not all of it, just to get more information on minerals. Yep, so it is what it is. I don't think I would classify it as a living book, but again, has lots of good information. Might be good for like slightly older kids. This is just a Rocks and Minerals nature guide that I have had, and it was out on our shelf, and we did use it occasionally to try to identify some rocks. But we didn't use it all that often. I just had it out there so they could look through it if they wanted. And this is one that we got as a hand-me-down, and so I also put this one out. I don't know if we ended up reading this at all. I think I ended up pulling it out to see if we wanted to draw pictures from it, but we had such beautiful pictures in some of the other books that I don't think we even used it for that. So I think it could be a good resource. I think it might be better for older children. You could use this kind of thing as kind of like a spine and go through the different sections and then work off of that. I chose not to, but it could still be a really good resource, so I wanted to share it with you. Okay, so these books are more story books, even though not all of them are stories. I will explain. So Magic School Bus, you will probably recognize. This is Magic School Bus Inside the Earth. My kids enjoy these books, and I have to read all of the little speech bubbles, so it takes a while. But yeah, the kids enjoy them. It's a story, and there's a lot of information. So Magic School Bus is great for this age group. Rocks in His Head was actually suggested to me by the owner of the bookstore that I love to go to. And this is a really sweet story. This is actually, I think it's a true story. I don't know if it's his, I think it's his daughter wrote it. The main character's daughter wrote it about him. It takes place kind of around the Great Depression era, and it's just about this guy who, he didn't go to college or anything, but he loves rocks and minerals, and he just studied them and learned about them and collected them his whole life. And he ends up getting a job at a museum, and he ends up being hired as curator of mineralogy after years, even though he doesn't have the education, because they realized that he knew more than, anybody else did about the rocks. So it's just, he turned his lifelong passion into a career, and it's a cool book. Rhoda's Rock Hunt. I enjoyed this one. It's a little girl. She's on a hike with her aunt and uncle, and she loves rocks, and she just keeps stuffing them in her backpack. And her backpack gets pretty heavy, and she has to come up with a solution because she can't carry them all. So it's a sweet book. And it doesn't really teach you, about the specific rocks, but it's a good story to include in the rock unit. Rocks a Box, and also this is probably the least relevant to rocks I have, but it, if you've read this one, I love Barbara Cooney's illustrations. This one's a classic, and it's basically they created this town out of rocks, and sea glass and other things. And so it's about imaginary play and childhood, and it's a beautiful story. So I decided to include this one as well. Okay. This one is, it's not really a story, but it talks about like different kinds of rocks. So I think it's good for igniting imagination in the children on all the different kinds of rocks you can find and what you could do with them. So it's a splashing rock, and sifting rocks, and let's see, what is this one? A worry rock. Hiding rock. So it kind of goes through all different rocks that you might find in nature and what you might do with them. So that's If You Find a Rock. And this is A Rock Can Be. We actually did this our very first week. It's kind of, along with If You Find a Rock, it's kind of a nice introduction. All the things a rock can be. And just recognizing where rocks are and where we use them. I like the illustrations in this one too. So that is A Rock Can Be. So these two we actually didn't get to. Let me start with this one. This Everybody Needs a Rock, and it's 10 rules for finding a rock. It's kind of a fun book, but it was just a little long and I ran out of time, so I didn't include it. But that is another possible addition if you're doing a rock unit. Everybody Needs a Rock. And this one I actually picked up because one of our field trips that I had planned to do is go to the Granite Museum. And everything around here kind of closes in the winter. And I didn't get to it before it closed in the winter. So we're going to try to get there this spring or summer. And then we might read through this one. It is a little long. I don't think it's really a living book. So we might just read pieces of it. Or we might not. We might just go to the Granite Museum and enjoy. But I did get it to go along with that field trip, and we just unfortunately didn't get there. I want to go through some of the activities that we did with this unit as well. First, I want to mention that we did go to the Marble Museum and learned a bit about marble, and that was a fun, interesting trip. I will try to insert a picture here. I don't think I took a lot of pictures, but I think I have one. So I'll try to insert that here. So that's something we did as an activity. As I mentioned before, there's also a granite museum around here. So we're going to try to, we didn't get to it before it closed for the winter, so we're going to try to get to that one later. But those were our field trips for this. And of course, on hikes now, now that we know more about rocks, we're on the lookout to see if we can find other rocks and identify them and everything. So it'll continue. But I'm going to start with these cards. And these are 3-part cards, which just means that they have 3 parts. So for the copper, it has just a picture. It has a picture with the name, and it has one that's just the name. And I bought these from Tanglewood Hollow. I will link it below. It's a digital download, and then I put it on I attached this paper I had to the back and laminated them. And so we've used them mainly for matching activities. It does come with cards with some information as well, so you could have the kids sort them by type as well. I found that was a little difficult for my kids, but they're young, so if you have an older student, that might be a good option. Tanglewood Hollow has a bunch of beautiful resources for nature and science studies, so I recommend checking that out. Even though this was the last thing we did, I'm going to show you this next. This is an egg carton. We took rocks from various places and activities and chose one per space here, and we haven't quite actually finished, it looks like, but we started labeling them and what they were. So like this is pumice, this is our geode that we're pretty sure is calcite from our geode kit, this is dolomite from the activity rocks kit, this is marble we got from the marble museum. So you can see that's a fun activity to do as well, and it's also kind of a keepsake from our studies. I'm going to save this for the kids so they can look at it. Okay, so these are not in order. I'm gonna save that one for a minute. I'm gonna talk about this. This is a game, Rock On, and it comes with rocks, which is nice. These are rocks for you that they match identification cards and other things in the game, and these are to use as place markers because it's essentially a bingo game. So there's different ways to play it, but yeah, it's essentially bingo. There's also questions on here that you can use. So we kind of did our own version of it, but this could be used with a variety of ages, and it's nice that it actually comes with the rocks. It does say ages 5+. I think they're probably being, well, so my kids couldn't read the questions, so I had to do all the reading of the questions, or get, another adult to play with us. But it wasn't a big deal. We could just play where we, pulled a card, and used it as bingo as well. So I think you could play it with younger kids. Obviously, they're small parts. So if you have a toddler that's putting things in their mouth, then you might not want them around this. But I think this is a really fun addition to a rock study. This is a geode kit. We have the National Geographic one. I think there's a bunch of different kinds. I'm going to go ahead and insert a clip here of, I went through this box before we did the activity, and also just a quick clip of us with the geodes and trying to break them open. So let me show you that, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I have opened up this kit. It comes with a learning guide, which we're actually going to read through before we do it, which is nice, and instructions, which basically they either want you to use a hammer and a chisel or put it in a sock and hammer it so that the pieces don't go flying. And I'm borrowing some of my husband's socks to do that. It does come with one pair of goggles. I actually got several already, so we have them. I didn't realize it came with one. But that's cool if you were just like one person doing this, or you need one extra. It also comes with a little magnifying glass, and I think these are probably stands to display the geodes afterwards. That's my guess. And then it comes with a whole bunch of geodes. Now, of course, until we break it open, we don't know exactly what's inside. So, but it does come with a bunch in a variety of sizes. So that's what's in the kit. We're going to read a few books and this learning guide, and then we're going to take it outside to see what we find. Oh, you're doing something.
I'm doing something.
Do you want Mommy to help you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. Oh, you picked a really hard one, Munchkin. Ah. Oh, maybe it's one of those that's solid. What was that called?
I don't remember.
Let's see. See what we got. Ooh, look how pretty that is. That's gorgeous, Munchkin.
I know, right?
I hope you enjoyed that peek inside the geode kit. And us, well, my kids trying to break them. I did break some. We actually have several left, so we can do this again later. So I'm hanging on to this for the future as well. This we didn't actually get to, but I stuck it in here because you could very well include a volcano kit in a rock study. And I already had this one, so I did stick it on the shelf thinking maybe we'll do it, but we didn't get to it, and I'll probably do it when we do, we're going to do weather and natural disasters next year, and I think we'll just throw volcanoes in there and maybe do it then. If not, we might just do it for fun at another time. Okay, and then this is the last thing we got to. You can't really, it's empty right now. I can't really show you what's in it, but I filmed, before we did this activity, I gave you a peek inside, and then I filmed some of the activities that we did with this, that I set up with my daughter. I actually used a couple other things to expand on a few of the experiments in here. But again, I'm going to show you a clip of that, and then I'll be back. I'm setting up for our rock activity here, and I just wanted to show you before I did it. So I got 2 of these Activity Rocks kits. I just picked them up, I believe, at a state or national park in their gift shop. This is what's inside. The back of this has information on the 4 different kinds of rocks and the activity you can do with them, and then it comes with the 4 different, with the different kinds of rocks, as well as the there's a penny that you can use for one of the experiments. Obviously, there's some things that I'm going to need to get, like some water and some magnetic items, and there is a paper clip in here though, so that's nice. They include the paper clip and the penny. I'm going to set up, these are very simple experiments, and some of them we're just keeping simple, and some of them I'm going to add a couple things to. So once I get those set up, I will show you. Okay, I wanted to give you a quick view of the activities we're doing with rocks before my kids got into them, because it's going to be hard to see. So starting at the left here, this is the dolomite. We will be pouring vinegar in there. They both came with pennies. We're just going to do a penny with one. So what's supposed to happen is the acid in the vinegar is supposed to dissolve the limestone in the dolomite, and as it evaporates over the next few days, limestone will reappear as small crystals, and if you add a penny, it will create bluish crystals. So we'll just do one with a penny. So that's the first activity, and that's going to take us a couple days. I'm sorry for the bump. That's going to take us a couple days to complete, but that's okay. We can start it today and then make observations later in the week. These are polished pieces of quartz, which apparently if you strike them really hard, sparks will appear. So we'll see how that goes. So this is actually, there is pumice in here. This one's a pumice. There's 2 pumice in here, which floats. So hopefully it'll float in the water. Well, we'll see what happens. That one didn't really float. Bad experiment. Also, I just gave it away by making that one wet. I'll have to make a couple others wet too. The idea would be, I put some other rocks. They have to test it out and figure out which one floats and which one's the pumice. But if it doesn't float, that's not going to help them very much. We'll see if they can figure out by which one's the lightest. And lastly, over here, these ones are lodestone, and they're magnetic, and it does pick up things like that very well. I added, it doesn't really do like the penny. I think it might just be iron. So I put a bunch of stuff in here. Some of it's obviously not magnetic, but just for them to test with and on.
It's blue, it's copper.
Yeah, it must be the copper and the penny that makes it blue, right? I don't know, it must be a chemical reaction between copper and limestone, right? So we've poured the vinegar in to these little mason jars with the dolomite. So right now we're watching, there's little bubbles forming, and we're going to see, it looks like that one right here, we can kind of see the limestone starting to dissolve. So we're going to keep an eye on. You expected that one to float? Did you think that one was the pumice?
I feel like it was. Oh, this one should float. Oh, it floats. It floats.
Yay! That one floats. That's exciting. Let me tell you something. This one is also pumice, and it should float. But I don't know why it doesn't. But it feels lighter than the other ones, right?
But that one actually does float.
It does.
That one doesn't float. This one doesn't float. This one doesn't float.
Nope, we got. Take the lodestone. Nope, that's not magnetic, is it? Button. Now the penny is a metal, but do you know what metal a penny is?
Copper.
Copper. So it's not going to pull the penny, right? Because it's not
Iron.
iron. Oh, what'd you catch?
I caught
A nail. You caught a nail. So at the end of each lesson we did, and that could include books, just books, or books and activity. Occasionally it was just an activity. Most of the time it was, at least one book and an activity. We did some work in our nature journal. So I'm going to show you, this is my nature journal, and please be kind. I don't consider myself an artist, and I would just, I'm working alongside my kids here. But so we just went through we chose one of each of the different kinds of rocks. So I chose granite for igneous, marble for metamorphic, and I did a sandstone cliff for sedimentary, and we just made some notes and painted them. So she didn't really make notes, but she decided to draw gypsum, which we noted was sedimentary, granite, which is igneous, and marble, which is metamorphic. And she was drawing inspiration off of a pink marble that we saw at the Marble Museum, that we had a picture of, but yeah, we didn't have a sample of it per se. This is after we did minerals in our geodes. We chose different things to draw. She really enjoyed drawing minerals. I think that was her favorite part. So these are the 3 different kinds that we broke open. Oh, and this is also a mineral. This was found we have a big rock in our yard with a white stripe going through it that they had collected samples from over the summer. And we think it's either gypsum or halite, which I believe is salt. They both form from evaporating water. So they're it's in little cubes. This is what I believe is calcite as a geode, what we believe is quartz, and a nodule, which is basically a geode that's not hollow. And it's pink, which we think is from rhyolite, and it has a quartz vein running through it. So this is my attempt to paint them. She did a really good job. I was really proud of her. I think she used the Rocks Are Lively book as inspiration for most of these, but drew a variety of different minerals, as well as looked at our geode, the calcite geode. She drew the outside and the inside. So I'm really happy with how she's doing in her journals here. This was an experiment we did with sea salt versus Epsom salt crystals, and I will insert a quick video here of when we set up this experiment as well. So we're doing this experiment today as part of our rock unit, and we have dissolved a little bit of Epsom salt, or quite a bit of Epsom salt, in this container of hot water, and what we use for table salt is sea salt. So we've dissolved some in that container, and we're going to leave it for a while. It's supposed to take about a week for all the water to evaporate and see if we get some crystals out of them and what they look like. So we are finally observing this experiment we set up with the 2 different kinds of salt. We have our sea salt, which is what we use for our cooking salt in here. It was a pink Himalayan sea salt, and our Epsom salt in here. It's been several weeks. It's been more than one. This one actually still has some liquid in it. This one took a lot longer to evaporate than the other one. And can you share with our friends what some of our observations are?
The Epsom salt are longer and bigger.
They are longer and bigger. They're different shapes, right?
And my hypothesis.
What's your hypothesis?
That the longer, bigger ones take longer to be created.
That is an interesting hypothesis. So you can see that experiment actually took a couple weeks for the water to evaporate from the salt and to see the crystals. But once we did, we tried to just quickly sketch out the crystals and make some notes. And again, I write for her, but she did the observations herself. And that's what's important. She's still learning how to write, so I'm not going to push her on that. And then, let's see, she kind of combined things here. These were the last experiments that we did that I showed you from the activity rocks. And I don't think we ever went back and drew the lodestone. There was a bunch of limestone. I can insert a picture here. And so we may go back and do that because we did observe it. So, and I did take a picture. But these are just some sketches and notes from that. Hers are obviously much more colorful than mine. She also drew in the sparking rocks, which I left out because I did not think they worked well. But that's, I think, that's my last rock entry. She decided to sit down one day and just start drawing. I think these are from the Rocks Are Lively book. The illustrations in there are just so beautiful and so engaging. And so I just need to tape this in here for her so it stays, and then she can have this little special part that she opens. I just wanted to quickly mention that we did include my son in Nature Journal too. He has his own nature journal. He's soon to be 4, but he's 3 when we were doing this. And so this is what he ended up with. He really likes black. So this is supposed to be a big rock. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. He had me wear this fighting crystal. So you can kind of see he did mountains here. So he just kind of does his own thing, which is fine. He's 3. But it's nice to include him. We all sit there together and paint or draw. And I usually put on some music. Sometimes we have a candle. So it's just a really nice environment and time. And something that we all really enjoy and I want to continue doing in our homeschool. So that was our rocks unit. We spent about 6 weeks on it. I'd planned to spend only 4, but we took our time with some of the activities and experiments. They took a little longer than I had originally thought they would. But we really enjoyed this. I really enjoy the format of using unit studies for our science. So I'm going to continue that in the next year as well. And we are actually starting our next unit now, which is on nocturnal animals. And we've only been doing it, we're about to start our 2nd week. And their kids are just so excited. It's been a lot of fun. And I'm excited to share that with you when we finish that unit. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe below and also hit that bell to get notifications so you don't miss it when I post our nocturnal animals unit and other videos that I have coming. Talk to you later.